Tone, let me ask first about James McLean.
Yep.
How is he, and how did you react to the fact that he didn't get a ban from the FA? Was that sense as far as you're concerned, or how do you feel about it?
I think there's all. I've had a chat with him. You've got to be careful what you do today. He was taking stick all game, and I think he sort of like saluted our supporters, and on that side, the Sunderland supporters was there doing that to the Sunderland supporters. He's just got to be careful, Rob. I know. He was absolutely delighted that we'd won. It was against his old club, which gives it a bit more added spice and everything else. So. But you've got to be cool and calm, and you've got to hold yourself back at times, and James has to do that. Like I keep saying, he's a good lad. He's integrated fantastically within the group. I think, he's just got to be careful.
Yeah, the worry, I guess, is that he's a big part of your squad, and could he be a mild man if he's not careful with referees, with other supporters, if they know they can wind him up? Is that something you?
Well, like I say, I just think it was a celebration. I think it was a celebration because we'd won a game of football and he was celebrating. And I think if you look at it, Rob, and I've looked at it, his first, celebration was to our supporters, and like I say, the Sunderland supporters have been giving him a load of stick all afternoon, and he shouldn't react. He shouldn't react. But I think the FA have been sensible in what they've done.
He's been very honest about the situation with not wanting to wear a poppy on his shirt. Are you comfortable with how that's?
I think the great thing about this country is that everybody has a chance to voice their opinion. Everybody is given that opportunity and given that chance, and that's why it's one of the greatest countries in the world. People do give you a chance to do what you believe in and say what you believe in.
You're comfortable with that position?
Yeah, no problems at all. It's not what I personally believe, but if that's what James believes, that's what he believes.
Big win for you.
Yeah, it was an important win. We haven't reached. I don't think we've reached the heights of what we did last year. I think last season, especially the back end of last season, we played really well and looked a decent side. I think apart from the Villa game, we've huffed and puffed. But as I've said, I think there's reasons for that. I think not having Sido fully fit and not having him firing because of what happened in the window. The fact that the lads, we've got 7 players who actually play for home international sides, who've been away, and as I've said, they've been away 6 weeks already, and they're going away in November again. That'll be 8 weeks. That's 2 months out of 4 months. Your players are away, and they've actually been playing for stuff that hasn't happened before in their careers, and the opportunity to achieve something that's there. So I think that's all added up, and I'll be pleased when that is over with, and we can just get them together and control them. But Premier League, it's up and down.
So a lot of those next round of international matches you're talking about will be friendlies after the number of international matches they've played. Does that bother you?
I'm not one for friendly matches. I've said that before. I can understand them wanting to play in proper games where there's something at stake. Friendly matches, I think they play enough football, Rob. As I've said before, if the home international sides want to take the players away after the game and have them for 3 or 4 days, once a month, all the way through, they could have them till Tuesday afternoon or even Wednesday, and then send them back. I'd be much happier than having 2 weeks playing 2 friendly matches, because I don't think the friendly matches you get anything out of. I think if you have a look at, let's just say, England's results in friendly matches and then compare them when they're in tournaments, and they're so far apart, it's frightening. So I would do it in a different way, but like I say, I'm different. I'm a club manager. Obviously, Roy and other managers, won the players.
If you had a chance to look back at Sido's goal again, lots of people saying that it was a foul.
No, I didn't think it was a foul. I think the keeper's 6'8", and Sido's run across him. He hasn't run into him, and I think it was a poacher's goal, and he's done well side. He's still not as fit as what he was last year, and he's still carrying a little bit of weight, and we have to work hard to get that off him. But he certainly made a difference with his goals.
Yeah, talking about goals, only 7 so far in the 9. That's your biggest issue.
No, I like I say, from last year where we looked a potent side going forward and we looked as though we were going to score goals, we've not done that. But Saturday was encouraging, Rob. I think in the Premiership we got more crosses in than any other team on Saturday. So, it's just we need to get our players back and get our players working up and down the pitch, and especially the wide players. It hasn't helped with Solomon as well being away. He's had those 6 weeks away, flying to South America and then coming back in. He hasn't had time really to settle down, take his boots off and relax, and that's been difficult. But they're all things that happen at every club, Rob, so you have to deal with them.
What about Ricky Lambert? How's he at the minute?
Yeah, Ricky's getting fitter. I think that the one big issue with Rick when he came in, not having played many games for Liverpool, and then coming into the club, I don't think he was as fit and as sharp as we were hoping. I've seen an improvement, and especially this week, he's looked sharper this week. So, that's pleasing.
Because I guess I've seen a piece this week where he said he's a little bit frustrated, not just with his lack of opportunities, but with when he's been getting there himself.
Yeah, if you speak to Rick, I think he's quite an honest kiddie. I think he'll say that he hasn't, and he's been doing stuff himself as well to get himself fitter, which has been nice. It's not just what we've said to him. He's actually taken it on board and done it himself. He's a good professional, Rick.
What about Sessegnon? First start since April, and he impressed you, didn't he?
No, he did smash him. But I had that feeling with we weren't getting enough down the sides of the pitch. He was Sunderland again, one of his old teams, and you just feel as though sometimes players respond to those games. So we're really pleased with Sess. I'm pleased with James. Like I say, those two got down the sides of the pitch. The two fullbacks joined in more than what they've been doing, again, which helped us.
Could he play again? This isn't against his old team.
If I was Sess, I'd be really disappointed if I was left out Saturday after his performance.
What about team news? Because James Morrison was struggling with that.
Yeah, James is still struggling with it, and that's a disappointment for us because he has got that quality that we need. He can open teams up, and again, you try and look at it constructively. He's been with Scotland, he's been away and then injured, and so little bits and pieces like that just don't help your team as much as you'd hope for it to be a little bit more settled and a little bit more structured at the moment. But we'll get there.
Will he miss Saturday?
We'll see. He trained yesterday, but I still don't think he was comfortable. So we'll have a chat with him today.
Anybody else?
No, I think most of them are fit. I think most of them will put themselves up, Rob.
Okay. Final question about Norwich. That big defeat for them. I mean, look, this game.
I watched the game, and when Redmond scored the goal just before half time, they turned round second half for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You're looking at Norwich and you're thinking if Norwich score, they'll go on and win the game. And then it just conspired to go against them. They're a good side. They got some good players, and we've already been there in the cup, and we know it'll be a tough game.
Thank you.
Hi Tony. You must be pleased with the win against London. Not only the fact that it's your first home win of the season, but because it was Sam Allardyce's first game as well. Yeah,
it made it. Obviously, it made it more difficult because the players had something to prove for him, and it's the first time they were on show for Sam. So to come out with a win, and I thought second half we played really well. I thought first half we looked very, very nervous, and once we got the goal, I thought we did really well then.
And a relief to get that first home win.
Oh, it always is. To be 2-0 up against Everton, and pretty comfortable, and then to throw it away was a real kick in the teeth. So we needed to get a result, and especially at our place.
In terms of the way you're starting games, I saw a stat this week that you're the only team in the Premier League to have not scored in the first 30 minutes. It'd be good to get an early goal against Norwich, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I have to have a chat with warm-up people.
Is that a worry though?
Nah, not at all. I think you hope it swings and roundabouts. Sometimes it goes, sometimes it doesn't go. We've started quite a few games really bright and had opportunities and chances, but it's taken those opportunities and chances. That's the thing.
You mentioned a minute ago you obviously already played Norwich this season. It was a 3-0 defeat in the League Cup. What did you learn from that game that you can take into?
Well, they've got a decent squad because they made quite a few changes as well. We made a lot of changes, they made a lot of changes, so they've got a decent squad to see themselves through. What is a tough season, and I'm sure it'll be. It's always going to Norwich is always difficult. You've got a very, very partisan crowd. The atmosphere there is fantastic. So lovely stadium. Smashing football club, and they are passionate about their club there.
And in terms of teams that have just come up, they possess their own challenge, don't they? Because every game's like a cup final for them at the minute, isn't it?
Well, you talk Watford, Bournemouth and Norwich. The one thing that you guarantee every time you go there, the crowd are 110% behind them. There's great atmospheres, great noise, because they know how important it is for them to back their team. So all the promoted clubs, every year I've been in the Premiership, you always recognise that the one thing you'll get there is great support from the home supporters.